we all live in a state of nature. A state where all of us were just cheering for our own success
individually. This was a state where individual achievement, where competition was at its peak. That was our state. But this state also had its issues because we lived in perpetual fear. We were scared of what could happen to us next. We were afraid all the time. Why? Because our lives revolved around competition. The way we can compete and how strong we were the reason why we could survive. And that is also the cause of our fear. But that was the state that we lived in until people decided to band together, recognize each other's strength, leverage on these strengths, and be able to build themselves up. One, they were able to discard the whole idea of fear, but more importantly, they began to develop way better than when they were individuals fighting for themselves. That was our state. And that's how the community was born. Community is very important. It's what keeps all of us together in this world. It's what really makes the progress that we're seeing so far possible. It's what that makes us safe to call this place our world. That is why we're here. But this new realization of community is a threat now. It's a threat now because now there's competition is creeping back in. Individual achievements have been prioritized again. Everywhere you look, you find we have the best engineers. You can name them. We're even going to Mars. We're going everywhere. But we find some of these people coming from the most deprived communities that exist in. This is the problem with this community that we have inherited from people of old. But what's really the cause of this? Because community cannot just stand on its own. We cannot just wish it into existence. There are things that goes into building a community. And to preserve that community, education was a pivotal key for that preservation. Education as a social institution. Yes, there are several social institutions like religion, family, but education was key
because religion has to band people together who have similar beliefs. Your family relies on the same bloodlines. Education is what universalize the values that we all can share in this community. And we all have education, don't we? We're going to school, and now
I'm at Ashesi giving this speech because then education is thriving, right? But the problem is that for education to help us to achieve this community, that became so important for us to not live in fear and to be able to achieve more for ourselves. It has to do two things. The first, it has to prepare us for the social roles that we can perform for the sake of the community, not for ourselves. And two, in that performance of those social roles, in that we are supposed to build social consciousness amongst the people. That were the two things that education can rely on to build on or preserve this community. What our institutions these days and in our education sector has been doing well is to build the competence, prepare people for these roles. So we have people performing so well in their academics. We have people scoring good on tests. We have people becoming all that they can achieve for themselves. But our institutions have left out the metrics that we need to measure whether it's really for the society or for the community. Are these roles being performed for the benefit of the community that education was supposed to be about? No. And that's the problem. And that's how we need to imagine the way we are going about the way we educate our people. So a few years ago, I heard of Ashesi University's honor code system. And it was quite funny because I was always questioning how the university that gathers people from all sort of backgrounds, from everywhere, brings them together, and for some reason they can just assume that these people will be accountable for one another and be able to look out for one another and be able to support each other, to be able to hold a culture of community that exists in Ashesi. No. So I used to have some debaters, and of course I'm a debate coach, so I used to have debaters who I train in high school that makes it to Ashesi University. So every time I asking them questions about how this honor code works and whether it's succeeding or it's just a PR, right? But all the answers I get shows that it's possible. It's possible for us to be able to not just focus on the performance of students on tests, but we can also build their character. Those character that is important for us to hold our community in place and preserve it. What are these? These are things like honesty. These are things like values like respect for one another, but more importantly, accountability. Accountability. But we cannot do all these if we provide a conducive environment for competition to thrive. Our universities, our schools these days are so much obsessed about how much they rank on whatever metrics have been set for. That's what they care about. They are so much obsessed about the alumni. What are they doing? Who are they? Are they doctors? Are they professors? Are they presidents? That's their obsession. If you go to their website, that's what you're likely to find, to tell their story. But that's just half of it. They need to go much deeper to show us what the education they have provided for these people has been able to transform the communities they found themselves in. And that it will be the ultimate measure of the success of these institutions. But because they have become more obsessed with these metrics, it's very difficult for them to hold their people accountable, the alumni accountable. Because after all, you can come back to University of Ghana, KNUST, as long as you work with NASA. You will be thrown a red carpet and then you can just walk through. It doesn't matter what your work really involves. It doesn't really matter what you do, as long as you have that credentials. That's what you get. These are the things that we need to look at when we are reimagining our education and when we are looking back to how it all began and why it's important for us to preserve this community. In my one of my debate clubs that I ran after school or during weekends as well, parents can bring their kids together, and then we will teach them things about critical thinking, teamwork, basically just literacy, for them to have a voice of their own. Every time when we get new students, we always struggle for them to be able to work in teams. It always takes a long time because we will find conflicts between these students, and they are kids. There will be conflict here and there. But what we set out to do, and in our debate club, and for I don't know how many of you have ever participated in debates, there's no way you can be successful on your own if you're in a debate team. It's not possible. Your success is perpetually tied with the success of your teammates. So you are forced to confront these conflicts. And in confrontation of these conflicts, we learn the values of accountability more, because now we can hold each other accountable. If we don't confront these things through these collaborative environments, we are unable to do that. But what does modern education do in contrast to this? You can really go through school from kindergarten all the way to the university graduate and perhaps not have any friends. You could just work alone on your own script, pass your test, and graduate with the best GPA possible on your own. And then you will be a success story. But is this success story what we need? Is this success story what the community needs? Remember, the community is not just wished into existence. This community is supposed to help us, keep us at peace. It's supposed to help us, keep us from danger, and for us to achieve more. So now it may look like you are getting all that you want, because now we find presidents, we find MPs who amass wealth based on their positions. We find politicians, engineers, whatever position they have, they use it to amass for themselves. But ultimately, if we don't change our ways and fix what our community needs, which is social solidarity, which we need to ensure this from our education system, if we don't do that, we will get back to that state of nature. Yes, it will not be about hunting and gathering anymore, but it could be just having nuclear weapons, guns to protect yourselves, whether as a country or as individuals. And that's the state that we don't want to go into. And for us to ensure that we never get to this state, my message is simple. Our education institution, the systems of education, should revisit their true purpose. Their true purpose is not just to produce students or individuals that can perform well. Their true purpose is to be able to produce individuals that can perform these roles to the benefit of their communities. Thank you.